Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. I hope you are all extremely well and had a great weekend. I know it's a bit mixed weather-wise at the moment. We did have some really good flying weather here in the southeast of England and in between all of the rain. I mean, for anyone that's watching this from overseas, I know it seems like the British always talk about weather, but it's really because it's so unpredictable. But yes, I know a few people didn't get out flying because unfortunately the weather is a little bit changeable at the moment. But yes, hope you all had a relaxing weekend. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what should be the final part of this story in relation to Clifton Bridge. And hopefully it will bring around some good solutions and which will help everybody in the future and really show the power of one person, one drone flyer out there deciding to hold the CAA to account, which is fantastic. Just as a reminder, if you're new here in terms of the structure of our show here, we always put the information part at the start of our live streams, and then we move on to the chat and analysis towards the end, which means you can watch as much or as little as you like. If you just want the info, then you just need to watch the first few minutes, and that's really the idea behind it. So tonight I am going to be joined by Graham, and we're going to be taking a look at the CAA response to a drone flyer who wanted to fly a sub 250 gram drone in the vicinity of the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol, which is to the southwest of the UK. Now, when the drone flyer inquired to the CAA, he received a thread of email responses, which we do have the first one here, actually, that quite simply got a lot wrong and showed the CAA double and really trebling down on incorrect information based on legislation or even just advice. There was no basis for the advice that they were actually providing. So since our shows, since Stephen has shared this on social media and that type of thing, he has received the following email. So let's take a look at it. So, Stephen, firstly, thank you for taking. Thank you for your email to the CAA of 19th of June 2024. It has become apparent that the initial advice provided by our general inquiries team was inaccurate. Shocking, Graham, isn't it? Really?
Well,
Shocking.
It's great that we were right.
We have reflected on this and provided additional staff training to mitigate recurrence. Part of this training has been focused on ensuring future queries are triaged and sent to the appropriate technical team for response. In relation to your original query, the CAA does not recognise the no-fly zone outlined by Clifton Suspension Bridge Trust as an official airspace restriction as per the AIP. The Civil Aviation Authority has no remit in the adoption or enforcement of any bylaws that may be enforced by local authorities, which was certainly what Jonathan was telling us in the clip we played last time, and certain other bodies, so we would always encourage an operator to check prior to flying. In relation to bylaws, airspace remains a state asset and bylaws restricting certain UAS activity are in relation to activity undertaken whilst on the ground only. As always, we encourage UAS operators to follow the drone code, which they then link. I also appreciate the fact that this email was actually from somebody rather than just from the inquiries team. So this came from Richard Taylor, who is in the communications department of the CAA. So overall, and here is the man with a brightly coloured shirt to celebrate the fact that we've had some good news. How are you?
Well, I'm no longer in mourning, so that's got to be good.
Indeed, yes. They were very solemn shirts.
Apart from for the weather, as you mentioned earlier.
Indeed. Now, it is worth taking a moment to thank Stephen, who sent us these emails, Absolutely. And thank him for sticking to his guns on this topic and raising the awareness within the community. He posted it on social media, which is obviously what brought Graham's attention to it, hence it then featured on Geeksvana. And it really does show that this kind of result is possible, even from just an individual basically standing up and holding an authority to account. It was obviously without any drama or any confrontation, and the correct result has been gained, in my opinion. So this is it was an interesting response, isn't it? Because it does show a lot of movement, as it were, from the CAA. Now I've looked at the essential points. Obviously, it confirms that the initial advice was incorrect. It states that there will be...
We can hold our heads up high.
Indeed. Additional staff training to assess queries and sending them to the relevant technical team for response. I applaud that, but
I'd have expected it anyway.
Yeah, I would have thought that was in place already, personally. Again, I'm not trying to kick people whilst down. I'm very happy that the CAA have come forward to this drone flyer and been open and not fallen on their sword as such, but they've admitted what was wrong. They provided the right advice, and they've also informed him of what they're going to be doing in the future, which I think is good. They confirmed that there is,
and that's what we said we wanted to see, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
How are they going to improve it?
Exactly.
So,
that is exactly what we asked for on the show. We asked for the fact that we wanted to see what will happen to prevent this in the future, and hopefully that will, because I have to say that there has been discussion of high staff turnover at the CAA. I've seen that in the in recruitment groups online, and there's also other emails and experiences which have been sent to Geeksvana recently describing similar issues, basically. So the new policy.
I've had some sent to me as well in response to the my LinkedIn post and the Geeksvana show. So it's
the new policy within the CAA, where it's actually going to be essentially the call and email handling, should hopefully help. I'm hoping that's certainly where I'd hope to be. Now, there's no remit in terms of bylaws, which is great. It's good that they're re-emphasising that they do not get involved. The two things are separate. Bylaws on the ground in terms of drones is what you're doing on the ground. You can or cannot take off from that location. The airspace is a state asset, and that is, as per the state, regulated by the CAA only. So it's good that they again confirm that, and that yes, as it says, their bylaws usually restrict ground activity, not flight. So it's very, very rare, and I always say it because I think there are one or two bylaws in terms of overflight, but it's so extremely rare. It's almost not worth me mentioning that they even exist, isn't it? Really, because the vast majority are controlling only what happens on the ground.
I would say that this particular email is a very valuable resource.
Yes.
So it's got an awful lot in it, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly. And it is very clear. I think that we should congratulate them for dealing with it in such a quick way.
Yeah.
Also, going back to the original person that they're interacting with as well, they didn't just go out on PR or anything else like that. They have gone back and dealt with the actual inquiry that this person had, which I think in itself is actually a good thing, basically. From that point of view. Now, you will note from our previous videos that we didn't choose ourselves to challenge Clifton Suspension Bridge. We didn't contact them. We didn't bring up their bits and pieces and that type of thing. And really, that's because, in my opinion, landowners, especially at tourist sites, will often have strict policies that can sometimes contradict legislation. And that isn't really need to change. Now, they need to cover themselves in terms of insurance and risk, and obviously should an incident occur. Although I have to say, I'm just going to bring up a website here. He says pressing the right button. Here we go. I'm going to come onto that page in a second, but they do actually, on the Clifton Suspension Bridge website, they do actually separate out the policy from the law, basically, which I think is good. They show their bylaws here, which is obviously, I'm sorry, Graham, but no persons who use the bridge for base jumping. So I'm afraid you're going to have to cancel your plans for next weekend.
That's a shame.
It is, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh, could you imagine? I mean, I suppose they put it there because someone may have done it, I suppose, is the thing. Now, when you go onto their page that talks about filming and photography, they do state that personal and non-commercial filming and photography is welcome. Obviously, please don't obstruct. Obviously, we know from the pictures that we showed last time, the suspension bridge it's got a very narrow walkway, and it's quite easy for people to group up on there, basically. So it's something that everybody should be careful of, with even cameras on the ground. Now, I don't like the wording of their rules and restrictions in terms of drone flight, but I kind of have some sympathy in terms of the fact that it's not that wrong. The flying of drones within 50 meters of Clifton Suspension Bridge and the taking off or landing of drones on the bridge is not permitted. Now, although, yes, we say straight away, hey, I'm sub 250, the drone code itself, which it references, does start with that and then gives the sub 250 as an exclusion, doesn't it? Rather than saying, oh, if you're 250 and then 50 meters, because it then continues to state, in order to fly closer than the minimum distances specified in the drone code, which is obviously sub 250 you must contact and obtain prior permission from the Civil Aviation Authority. Again, they're actually not stating that for the flight itself that you need to have their permission. All they're really saying is if you're taking off, you do. The standard is 50 meters, but if you want to fly outside the drone code, you need, obviously, as we know, either an OA or an OSC from the CAA. And the CAA will probably, for those people, then fight back and say, actually, you also then need permission of the people. But anyway, that's a whole other video. And it states that please be aware that use of drones without following the CAA guidelines could lead to prosecution. I would say that that's incorrect, because it's without following UK legislation could lead to prosecution. Sure, CAA not following CAA guidelines will not give you the automatic right to say that your flight was legal, but it doesn't mean that it does say could lead to, but I still don't like the wording. And then it says Bristol City Council website has information about the flying of powered model aircraft, including drones from Bristol parks. And if taking off or landing from private land, you require the express permission of the landowner or relevant authority from which you wish to take off and land. Now, that again, I do kind of have a bit of an issue with, from the point of view that yes, you need permission if it's private land, but a land that is fully accessible and is deemed to be public. Personally, I fly and then I wait till I'm told to stop. I don't go and get the express permission. And that tallies with the video that we played last week on the channel with the interview with CAA as well, doesn't it, basically?
Yeah.
But overall, I have to say, I don't think, of all the drone policies that I have read, I don't think it's too bad, really. Do you?
It is clearly based on, I think it's clearly based on the old regulations where 50 meters was a thing for puffcos, but then again, it would then, I would imagine, under the old ruling, it would be talking about permissions for commercial operations.
Yes.
And you can't fly without one of those. The not permitted. You've spoken before about parks and councils not necessarily stopping things, but they're not going to give you permission to fly your drone.
That's right.
Because
that's right.
They don't want to step into that area of having condoned it.
Exactly.
And therefore, they're saying we're not going to give you permission.
Yes, we often say as an example, go and ask your council for written permission to walk your dog in their park, and you probably won't get it because of course there's so many. Yeah, they've never met your dog. They don't know whether your dog is muzzled. They don't know the route you're going to take. Any public body, when you ask them for permission to do something, is going to be awkward, but they're not also necessarily going to have the power to stop you or the policy to stop you as well. So as I say, if it's something that is obviously public land, as the drone code states, if there are no signs up telling me I shouldn't be flying, and then again, if there is a sign up telling me I'm going to look into what that actually is, then I'm going to fly. If there is a sign telling me that I shouldn't be flying in that area, I'm going to research it as per our previous videos. Has it got the legislation in the bylaw mentioned in the top right or bottom left type thing in one of the corners of the sign? But I have to say that isn't a bad policy, because it does, within that first paragraph, I would take that, okay, I'm flying sub 250, so I don't need to contact anybody. I'm not taking off from the bridge land. I'm good.
Yeah.
Basically.
If I was feeding back to them personally, I would get them to update the link to the drone code, because it's to the old drone safe site, which is no longer there.
That's right.
So if they got that right, it would be,
decent.
Yeah.
It would fall in the basket of we've seen worse. If we were going to choose who we were to contact to give advice on in terms of their drone policy, they'd be about halfway, wouldn't they? Halfway on the list. Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that these people have got a job to look after a suspension bridge. That's quite a thing. Lots of cars go over it. Lots of people go over it. That it's a responsibility. Drones are a really small part, and probably a really irritating part to them, with regulations that change with monotonous regularity, and it's sort of outside their purview to really understand those in depth. So don't go and make their lives difficult by picking up every little detail. If you're confident you can go and fly legally, go and fly legally
and wait till you're stopped. as well.
till you
You know,
start-
don't hide away,
and
because you're not supposed to hide away. You're supposed to be obvious who's flying the drone and that type of thing. And to me, the problem is that challenging landowners in a direct way is not the approach that's going to work. We've seen here with the way that Stephen dealt with things. He's got the right approach. He shouldn't have had to go through those steps, but he did, and he got the right response in writing, and he's actually changed something in the CAA. So well done, Stephen. I think it's absolutely fantastic. We're already seeing the changes in the CAA public consultation directly from the type of confrontation flight that we're talking about. And if enough landowners do complain and can actually prove risk, then things might actually change, basically. I mean, and I always say it's not my place to tell other people what type of content to make. And there's other videos, obviously, already explaining my thoughts on audit style videos and that type of thing. That's obviously what we're talking about. But the issue here really is that the airspace regulator siding with the landowner with the incorrect advice part of it. Ironically, the CAA email was more incorrect than Clifton Bridge's own drone policy.
Yeah, absolutely, with I would say no excuse.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Really, I really cannot. I cannot fathom why they would how that can happen. I'm delighted it won't happen in the future, but I would like it to be that drone channels, YouTube channels aren't required to continue to change policy, etc. in the future. But we'll get there one day, and there is a lot of change coming. So I do think. And I have to say this, I do think if you read through the consultation carefully, yes, there are some horrors in there, such as remote ID, which none of us are particularly happy about. But, you know, the inclusion of C1 drones, the continuation of the sub 250, but just having to get a flyer ID, there isn't anything particularly too scary coming, and they're actually looking to simplify things. So in actual fact, I think if the CAA get their way in terms of the public consultation, if what they're talking about in there comes to fruition in terms of their recommendations to government, I think we'll actually find that the drone code, etc., will become a lot more simplified. And I think that actually things will be a little bit easier, because of course, at the moment we are under the EU rules, which have been changed and shoehorned post-Brexit to fit for the UK, with little changes here and there, and obviously the C labels coming into effect in the EU and not here, and all those kind of things. So I think it will be simpler in the future, won't it?
I'm hoping so, and I think what we will have on the very specific network is probably a bit of a debate coming up about the fact that it's becoming simpler on the hobby side. And as the safety risk is understood to be lower, and yet more complex on the professional side, where the training is better and all the rest of it, and that's an argument to come, I think.
I think it is, yes, but I think we've got a good amount of change coming that might simplify that as well. So. And After Dark, it is worth just mentioning. He's saying, being nice to have some good news in light of what's been going on recently. Obviously, our thoughts go out to everybody affected in terms of the most recent. We shouldn't really have 3 videos on that area and not talk about the sad loss of life. All our thoughts go out to everybody involved. Yes, hopefully it sounds like the investigation's moving forward quickly. They have somebody in custody and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, well done. Wiltshire Police, will that be?
Oh, I presume so. Somerset, yeah. Well, Avon isn't Avon a metropolitan county or something? I don't know.
Okay, well done, police. I know they had resources coming in from around the country as usual with any kind of high-profile case.
Avon and Somerset.
So yeah, indeed. And JS Aerial saying at least they have acknowledged it, but this is absolutely cannot happen again. I completely agree with you. I really do agree. And there was an excellent. Was it James Singleton that shared the video on LinkedIn and pointed out one of the, and I think it was actually PD Tech, one of our regulars, that originally stated it in the chat of one of our videos on this. That what if that was the police inquiring about what somebody can do after they've already done it? They've now got an email from the CAA or a phone call with the CAA saying he shouldn't have been flying.
Yeah,
that can have serious ramifications. So although the advice was actually from the CAA was wrong in a safer manner, at least it wasn't putting anybody in further danger. It was removing that person's rights and well, not rights, their permissions, their privileges. But it was also risky from the point of view of who that information could then be passed to.
Exactly.
because actually when Stephen first shared the original email, people were jumping up and down stating when he shared this email, people were jumping up and down in the comments stating, hey, that's what the CAA has stated. You need to follow it.
Yeah. Some people went along with
the
thing that would take away their own rights to fly that drone as the law allows. And it is that what I would say is, if anybody has any issues over the next few weeks, please let us know.
Indeed, yes.
It's nice to see that this is working.
Please do, yes, indeed. Elsbeck, it's an interesting point. We need to know if anyone got sacked for the misinformation. I actually think that this was an institutional issue, because I think that there should have been processes in place. And indeed, the suggestion that there is now training happened and now things get passed on would, to me, make me think that it is something where they are where they've actually put this into place. So hopefully it won't happen now. And I'm not sure you can blame an individual for something that happened from an institutional point of view, personally.
And to be fair, I don't want anybody to be sacked. If they enjoy their job, if they can be trained so that they are good at their job, that's absolutely fine. If they've received training and then tomorrow do the same thing, then perhaps you have a different conversation, shall we say?
Yes, exactly. And Greg Shaw is saying the guy didn't need to ask. It shows on Drone Assist that it's okay. The only thing I would say on that is that Drone Assist isn't the be all and end all, and you should be willing to cross check information that you find on there. And actually, if you do see something like on the website on there, I think personally, I haven't got an issue with Stephen's due diligence. Other people will choose just to check Drone Assist and then fly, no problem. But because he did, then he got that. He knew the answer, but he kind of almost wanted to prove it to himself by doing what they've told him on the bridge policy and contacting the CAA. But yeah, I completely get that as well. Johnny DRC is asking to see a picture of the bridge. I can do that. Carry on, Graham.
Can I just step in? So from his point of view, he's going to a site which he can see on their website has got a 50-meter exclusion zone. He would like the CAA to give him an email saying, yes, that 50-meter exclusion zone doesn't apply. So when he turns up at the bridge, he can say, hey, this is from the CAA. It doesn't apply, guys. I'm going to fly here. And there's there may be an argument, but he would have evidence on his side. So I can see why, for a site like that, you may want to go to the CAA and get confirmation, which he should have got.
Yes,
he should have got that straight away.
Yeah. This is a photo from Trevor Sherwin, just to give the original artist his dues. And yeah, this is it here, Johnny, just so you can see what it was. We did show it on the last video as well, but I think it's a good idea as we're talking about it. And it's an interesting one because it is a little bit restricted, isn't it? You can see why they would want people to be safe flying a drone. And I do think that there are Article 241 issues that you have to keep in mind. And, there's nowhere much for cars to go. There's certainly nowhere much for people to go. But I often find that most people, when they talk about flying there, fly there either early, as this photo is obviously getting one of the golden hours. People want that golden hour look to the photo or the footage, and so therefore it tends to be less people. You can see whenever this was taken, there's actually nobody or almost nobody on the bridge at all. So it's actually a very nice picture.
I've seen quite a nice 360 video on YouTube, so you can actually spin around and actually see that there were one or two people there, one or two vehicles. So there's nothing being edited out. It's just it was just a quiet time of day, and they happen.
I just have to put this one up to say, well done, Scott. That's actually quite funny. Yes. Scott's been doing some good videos recently, actually. If anybody hasn't got him, Amok Time Flies, he's done a good couple of videos on flying at night, actually, which is a nice companion to my own one on the regulations surrounding it, where he actually does go out and do the deed, as it were. Wayne Harry, it might be too soon, but was the guy flying over the suspension bridge looking for the suitcases? Yeah, no, I don't think so. it's an interesting one actually, because it did seem that when people asked to fly there in terms of the police, it looks like the police didn't block it in terms of any kind of issue with the regulations, the legislation surrounding emergency services.
Yeah.
Because I suppose there wouldn't have been anything sensitive there anymore. There's no police tactics and things to expose. So I think that's an interesting one. Lee Bayliss, I know you need some sort of insurance for using drones in a commercial setting. Does FPV UK cover commercial use? I've got OP and Flyer ID. Yes, although you cannot mix the two things. So the Article 16 is purely recreational, that you also get access to under FPV UK. They do now cover you for up to £15,000 worth of work per year. So that's invoice amount per year under the correct commercial insurance, all within the FPV UK fee, basically, which is absolutely fantastic, I think.
It's incredible, isn't it?
They were already the organisation that I recommend in terms of just straight value, and now Simon is really knocking it out of the park, frankly. It's very, very good. And as yes, thanks, Toby is letting Lee know that as well in the chat. Dan does make a good point though, because an awful lot of people say, oh well, I'm insured, but as he says down there, no insurance covers anyone if they're breaking the law, because the insurers will just turn around and say, yep, you're flying outside the law, sorry, we don't cover illegal flights. Absolutely. Yeah, really good point, Dan, thank you. Try having a crash being drunk and see what Admiral might tell you. By the way, he is using that as an example, not actually inviting anybody to go and fly drunk, and then calling Admiral saying, sorry, sir, you don't actually have a policy with us.
Dan said.
Danny from Argos said. Oh, no, it's not. Why am I calling him Danny from Argos? Sorry, Dan. Yes. Dan. Yeah, Dan the drone man, I think that is. Actually, no, it's a different Dan. We have multiple Dans in the chat.
Dans. Yes,
Dan the drone man, actually, he's saying it. Danny from Argos is going to haunt me forever. Danny from the CAA I can handle. Yeah, excellent. Okay, no problem, Adrian. Thanks for clarity about FPV UK. I think it's important because obviously people see the fact that you get commercial insurance with FPV UK, and they think, oh great, I can do Article 16, fly commercially, and I'm insured. No, two things are very separate. They're both great things to offer, but they're very, very separate. So yes. And Tazzy's saying, Tazzy, are you actually a Dan? We're now getting no, I'm the Dan, no, I'm that. Very good. Excellent. We like these in jokes on Geeksvana. Excellent. Okay, well, that is the news story. That is the feedback. That is also the feedback from our wonderful audience. Thank you for coming out in such high numbers for what is a follow-up to a follow-up. I really do appreciate it. The biggest shout out has to go to Stephen in terms of being so. Yep. I mean, Graham was threatening proposal of marriage last time.
He's accepted, and it's a September wedding.
Wonderful.
Oh my God, that'd be lovely.
Wonderful. But in all seriousness, you know, he's in the chat actually. S Metcalf 76. Everybody at S Metcalf 76 in the chat and tell him well done.
Big round of applause.
Because it is fantastic. I know that it can be difficult to pursue these things and to keep your cool. And he kept it on track. He kept bringing them back. Like, no, you're not escaping. You're not. This is what you told me. And we've now got this clarification because of the community. And how cool is that? The community itself sorting out the problems, which it gives me goosebumps. I know that's a bit geeky, but this is Geeksvana, so.
Yeah, it's allowed.
Exactly. Excellent. Okay, thank you, everybody. Graham, you have the last words as ever.
Fly safe.
Is that it?
That's it.
What a glorious shirt we have. Can we have a full shot of the shirt? Oh, yes. That is a good CAA response celebratory shirt, isn't it?
It's not bad, is it? Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.